My name is Josh Miller. I own River Stone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Thank you once again to Eukanuba. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020 is what I have all of our dogs on, and I love it. I think, from top to bottom, I could not be happier with it, and I'm getting that same feedback from all of my friends and colleagues that are also running their dogs on this food. And so if you guys are looking for a high-quality premium food to put your four-legged athlete on, I would highly suggest the Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. Sitka, this what's kind of cool about this is that Sitka has really become one of those companies that I feel like one of the reasons I've connected with them so much is because they have so many great people inside that company. So yes, it has absolutely made a difference in my training and hunting while I'm in the field. I'm more comfortable. When I'm more comfortable, I can be more productive. But I just love working with great people. And so if anyone is in the market for some very premium, high-quality gear to have both in the field training and hunting, I would highly suggest going to www.sitkagear.com. All right, so we have something fun in store today. And if you guys have not listened to the previous episode, go ahead and do that because, for those of you that have followed along, know that I'm kind of stuck right now in a very awkward time of the year for me because, I just have, we have snow on the ground. I was just out on the lake ice fishing with my daughter last night, and we still have about 18 inches of ice out on the lakes or more. And so, although it's starting to feel like spring, we also feel like we're very far away from spring yet. And so, it's not full training season yet. We're kind of ramping up for it, making our plans and arrangements to really hit it hard when the opportunity comes. But until that point, I had chosen to fill the void or fill this time really dedicating towards puppies and breeding and all that good stuff too, because there's so much more that goes into this thing than just picking two dogs and producing puppies. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to talk about and dig into last episode when it came to pedigrees. And I've gotten some tremendous feedback from that episode. Really appreciate everyone that reached out after listening to that. To be honest with you, I actually expected a little more pushback or potentially, some kind of, negative feedback here and there, just because I feel like what I propose and my thoughts and feelings would, I'd consider them a little outside the norm as far as, what, forever, like, everyone that I learned from and, my mentors and everything kind of went through the same, feeling and process when it came to pedigrees. But I really believe in what I talked about, which was just a quick recap is I do not discredit pedigrees at all, and I really firmly feel like there is a very big importance to them. I think we need to have those. We need to have those standards. We need to be pushing our dogs. We need to have some sort of base foundation of what dogs are capable and qualified of doing this. Because the term great is relative. Like there has to be some measuring stick. But at the same time, I really don't agree with the whole, paper shopping. You can only tell so much from a piece of paper. And, there's a lot more that goes into it. And watching, these dogs grow up and working with them, I feel more and more passionately about that all the time. And so, again, pedigrees are very important, but there's so much more beyond the paper. Beyond the paper. That's what I should have named that last one. Let's go back and rename that one. Beyond the paper. That's awesome. So as you heard the giggling in the background, I have my first guest on, and then way back when we started this thing, I said I wouldn't have guests, or at least not many of them. But this one makes sense. And today I have my wife, my better half, Whitney, with me, aka the Puppy Queen. And she is going to kind of talk through some of this puppy stuff with us. And I really value Whitney's opinion on this stuff for a lot of reasons. But I think there's just very few people that I have ever met that have the credentials that she has when it comes to the puppy side of things. Have the passion, but the knowledge to back up that passion. And I think there's a lot of great stuff there, and I think there's a lot of value that you could get out of this. And so this will be kind of a fun one, because how I've chosen to break down this podcast, because we could have gone 100 different ways, was I took a number of questions that we actually received off of the kennel page, River Stone Kennels. We got off the Instagram page of just people that are just, inquiring about puppies and questions that they asked. And so I went back, and these are all questions, not all of them, but a select few of them that were questions that we just got last week. And they were questions that I thought we could expand on and we could dig deep into, at least, maybe not too terribly deep, but deep enough to give some context to it. And I think there'll be some really interesting information that kind of comes of this episode here. So without further ado, Whitney.
Thank you. I feel so honored to be your first guest on here.
Welcome to our kitchen.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, we don't have an elaborate studio. We have our kitchen. And so here's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So because I know that you love surprises.
Wonderful.
So much.
I'm already nervous.
I want to throw the first question out there that is not a question that is on the list here, which is I have a question, mm-hmm. and then I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
So the question is, do you love your job?
Absolutely.
That was the
no
easy
question.
One. I
love my job.
Okay, so you love your job.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you love your job?
Well, that's a loaded one. I love my job, one, because of the people that I get to meet through these puppies, relationships and friendships that I've made through these puppies, and because I believe I'm doing everything I possibly can to produce the healthiest puppies. Every puppy pickup, I know I'm making probably a little bit of a difference in these families' lives by giving them a new family member that is going to bring them a lot of laughter and joy for the next, hopefully, 12 to 14 years.
Yeah, well, that's a good answer. That was definitely more than I was expecting. So that's awesome. Here's the reason I asked that question, is that anybody that has ever been over here, when they see you, either that you're whelping a litter, you have just whelped a litter, you are caring for the puppies, anyone that has ever been around you with your puppies, they always make a comment of the care you give, the passion you bring to it, the credentials you have. I mean, there's so many things that I think set you apart from what I'd consider your quote unquote average breeder. And I really think that the love that you bring into it is a big part of that. And so that's why I ask that. I don't know if I've ever asked you that before. I probably have never had an unawkward platform like this one to ask you that. But I think that's very, very obvious. And for those of you that don't know, there's a lot to this that goes on behind the scenes that you don't see. You don't see the long endless nights that you're whelping all night long. You don't see the tears when things don't go perfectly right. Mm-hmm. You don't see the detail that goes into what we're going to talk about here as far as the testing and everything. And so there's way more to this that I think that's why I want to dig into this. And I think before I dig into the questions, one thing that it's a comment that I made that I got some feedback on that was really interesting, and I'm going to make the comment again because, again, I truly believe this, is I believe that the most breeders that are out there, if they were to be honest with themselves, They're breeding the dogs that they're breeding because those are the dogs that they have. And we're going to dig into that a little bit here because we are extremely selective in the dogs we're breeding. We have to make a lot of very difficult decisions, through that process. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But again, there's just so much more to this than producing puppies. Mm-hmm. And so let's jump into the list because I want to go over a bunch of these questions and don't want this to be a 4-hour long conversation. So the first question, which I think is a really good one, mm-hmm. is around our reservation list and our cost, because we have, and have always had, when I say always, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, a very, very long reservation list, mm-hmm. Which probably deters some great people from getting puppies from us, which is unfortunate, but there's a reason for that. I want you to talk about that. And then the cost. Mm-hmm. Why do our puppies cost more than most other puppies that you would find? So let's start there.
Okay, so first let's talk about what our reservation list actually is. Most breeders have reservation lists based on litters. We actually have it based on sex and color. So if you are looking for, a yellow male, then you get placed on our yellow male reservation list. If you're looking for a black female, you're on the black female reservation list. Reason being is that our business is basically ran by Mother Nature, and we have no idea how many puppies are going to be born in each litter. You can get a litter of 1, you can get a litter of 12. The last thing I want to do is disappoint people and tell them I don't have a puppy for them from that litter they were planning. Mm-hmm. So by having the reservation list based on sex and color, I can, once a litter is born, I can start at the top and work my way down, offering people a puppy from that litter that the temperament is going to match what they want in their puppy. Mm-hmm. It gives me a bigger opportunity to match them with a more proper litter for them rather than just being focused on one litter.
So I think that's a really interesting point. And through this conversation here, you're going to get a lot of different viewpoints that Whitney and I have kind of come together on, because I speak very much from a training in the field athletic athlete standpoint, where you come from what would you say, more of a family-oriented, family-minded, mindset. Yep. So that we kind of merge our thoughts there. Mm-hmm. But from a training standpoint, what you were just talking about as far as not taking reservations per litter and taking reservations for sex and color. Mm-hmm. From a training standpoint, what I think is so important from this is that people that get on our reservation lists, they trust us.
Yeah.
They know that we go in very good detail as far as what it is that you're looking for. And of course, if there's like like you really, really want a Brock puppy, you really, really want a Bud puppy, of course we can exclude other litters to make some of that stuff happen. But here, from a training standpoint, why that's important to me is because a lot of times, I'm just going to be honest, people don't know what they want. They think they know what they want, and so I use Brock and Sage, for example. Brock and Sage was a fire with fire breeding, right? I mean, we were going to be producing, fire-breathing dragons is what we were trying to produce there. And there are a lot of people that loved Brock, that loved Sage, that wanted a puppy from that litter. But when you dug down into it, they hunted, 2-3 times a year. They, are, retired, live up on a lake in, northern Minnesota. And, the dog was going to ride a pontoon, train, 30 times a year and hunt 2 or 3 times. Like that is not a good fit. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think that's part of it too, is that trusting us and that we know these dogs, we know what we're trying to produce, and matching them up. And it is incredible, the positive feedback that we get from that is, oh my gosh, you hit this out of the park, you placed the perfect puppy. It's really interesting, that feedback from a training standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, back to the kind of like the main question, reservation time. So a year and a half, which we have been, I think, what you said, like 5-7 years. We've always been at a year and a half, basically. And we have about 10 to 15 litters a year. Obviously, we could have more if we wanted to, but we don't want to risk quality for quantity. Mm-hmm. So we focus on that year and a half. We're very true to that timeline. And we also want to make sure that, again, you're getting the right puppy for what you want your puppy to be doing. So I would say that's a year and a half for our reservation timeline. A lot of people can say that that's extremely long and they don't want to wait, but I think the timeline also speaks for itself and the type of breeding we're doing and the quality we're producing.
Mm-hmm. I love the quality over quantity comment because I think that's so important. And I've had a lot of people from a business standpoint bring up the thought of, look, you guys should be producing as many puppies as you possibly can because you have the demand, and you should be trying to, for lack of a better term, make hay while the sun shines. And I think it's something that you and I have both agreed on that we will not waver from. Producing the highest quality puppies that we can versus just pumping up puppies to have puppies. Of course, from a business standpoint, we'd love to, double, triple, quadruple our income because we have the availability to, and we can pump them out. But I really love the standard that we've held ourselves to, and only producing, the right quality dogs. And I also think, that's also the reason that when people get on our list, they know that that's what they're going to get. They know that we're holding ourselves to that standard, not just producing these puppies. And so, yes, like I said earlier, I do think we lose a lot of what potentially would be great clients and great people, because of that weight. But I do want to challenge if you're in the market right now for a puppy, just the thought process. Okay, so if you find puppies that are on the ground ready to go, okay, there's probably a reason for that, right? And you are making, God willing, a 10 to 15 year commitment when you go down this road. And so a reservation list or a waiting list, like you had said, hopefully is saying that we're doing things the right way and there's a reason that we have this demand. Like, that might not be a terrible thing to take as a sign and say, hey, like, for this big of a commitment, maybe it's more important to wait and get the right puppy versus needing a puppy right now. And so, reservation list, like I said, I hate that it probably does turn, some people away that would be great people to work with. But it's also something that I know I'm very proud of. Yeah,
I am too. And another part of it is that I literally do everything in the breed, like all the communication, all the raising of the puppies, and, dealing with our mama owners that we have breeding contracts with. Like, I can be very selfish in that way because I want to be hands-on and I want to do it all myself. So having 10 to 15 litters by myself every year, if I were to get bigger, I don't want to have to rely on other people to do my job. I feel like it's my job, and I love creating those relationships with every single person that purchases a puppy from us.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
Thank you.
And I guess I'd echo that on the training side of it is that, in the summer, specifically in the summer, like last summer, we could have filled 4 buildings the size that we have, 4 of them, with the waiting list that we had and the demand that we had to get people in for training. But the reason we're never going to do that is the same reason you just said. The relationship side of it is extremely important to us, and having that personal connection, that personal touch. I want to see every dog and have an impact on every dog that comes through the kennel. I want to be working with all those dogs, and so it's very important. So let's talk about cost. So why our puppies are $3,000 as it sits today.
Yep.
I think something that is also interesting is that we don't change that cost per litter. And I think a big reason for that, and a lot of people have questions on this, is it's more like, okay, so like we have Sage Brock is a litter that we had just talked about. We have, Lady Clyde that is on the ground right now. Those 2 litters, even though I'd say they're built differently, not one of them is better or worse. But there's certain people that fit one versus the other, right? And so I don't think we're producing better or worse puppies across the board. I think that we're producing litters with different tendencies that certain people are better fits for. And so I think that answers one of the cost questions of why all the puppies are the same. But I'm going to let you answer the question of why do our puppies cost more at $3,000 than say a lot of other people?
Yeah. It all starts with the mom and dad, the genetics, and what we test for. So we test for 21 different genetic traits in every single one of our sires and dams before we breed them. That's a lot more than what a lot of other people do, but it's the exact same cheek swab. Obviously, it's more money, but I want to make sure I'm producing the absolute healthiest puppies that I possibly can. That is my job to do that for all of our clients. So along with the genetic testing, we are also doing, obviously, OFA, hips and elbows. And that's a lot of money to start with, not to mention importing dogs to make sure they're, what we're looking for, making sure we're bringing in fresh bloodlines into our breeding programs. We like to see when Josh goes over to the UK, making the trip alone is a lot of money. And then we have to find the right dogs and bring them over here. And then we have them live with us for a full year before we decide if we want to bring them into our breeding program or if we want to send them to someone that is on our import reservation list to give them a great life. So it's a lot of time and commitment before we decide what we want to do with that dog that we just brought over.
Yeah, well, and so again, from my standpoint, the training standpoint, I'm going to hold off on mine because I think it goes into our next question here, which is how do you select breeding pairs? And so I'd like your input, and then I'll kind of give mine and kind of tie that into my answer of the cost piece of it as well.
Yeah. So, well, obviously a lot of them, they go through the training, but most of our females are offsprings of ours. And what we do is when I'm placing our puppies, I make sure to place one or two of them with a breeding contract, saying that once your puppy becomes 2 years old, goes through all the genetic testing and is good to be brought into our breeding program, then we say, okay, this is a great female for our breeding program. And then depending on kind of what her personality is like, her temperament, her hunting ability, and all of her genetics, then we look at the sire. I really focus on the family side of things, having 2 little kids of our own, having dogs that are family dogs 365 days a year. It's really important to me to make sure that they have that off switch. And I think a lot of times when people call asking about the litter temperaments, I say all of our dogs have the off switch. It's how much of an on switch do you want? And that's where you come in, is that you kind of say, okay, well, and I guess we look at the breeding or our reservation lists. We say, okay, how many clients do we need to have, how many breeding pairs of fire and fire do we need? How many of, almost more of a therapy type of dogs do we need? And then anywhere in between. So there's a lot that goes into figuring out a breeding pair. But I would say first, obviously, we look at genetics and then temperament. Would you agree? Yeah,
well, and I think that that my role probably plays a big part into the breeding pair and the selection on that. And so let me kind of talk from my point of view. And so this all starts with the boys, as far as I'm concerned. So for those of you breeders out there, we're going to give you a little bit of our secret sauce here because I mean, again, then this goes all the way back to my pet, my paper shopping analogy of we have the boys on site. We have the boys here, and then we have breeding contracts on all of our puppies. And so I'm going to answer a lot of questions, because another one I want to wrap into this is that we get a lot is, which is not on our list, but we get this a lot is why do you have limited registration on your puppies? And so I want to go over this a little bit. Okay, so this is the process or part of the process that goes into these puppies and goes into producing, the puppies that we're producing. So one, I take, not with COVID, but before COVID and inevitably when COVID, when the restrictions lift, I'll get right back to this, which is I take multiple trips overseas every year. And when I'm overseas, I will field trial, with my friends. I train, with a lot of people. Networking is a big deal. Seeing these young dogs, finding these young dogs that I want to bring over. It's a lot of time that we commit to overseas, because that authentic line is very, very, very important. Mm-hmm. Then we got to get the dogs here, which, I mean, there's just so much that goes into that, with, the health certifications, with purchasing the dog itself, which that is getting crazier and crazier all the time with, more and more people that are trying to jump on this bandwagon. Then, you have, the broker fees, then you have the flights, which are astronomical. I mean, it's like, it's a endless pit of money just getting the dogs here. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now the dogs are here. And the way that I like to go through things is I want to train, work with these dogs, develop them, see what was natural versus what was trained in, see what their faults are, because, I'm sorry if I'm bursting your bubble with your own dog, but all dogs are going to have faults. It's just a matter of what are they, and really learn this dog. And that is a minimum of a year process. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we've gotten to the point that, okay, is this a dog for us to be a part of this breeding program, to be a part of our family, to be a part of what we have going on here? Or do we place this dog with one of our great clients and, go live a fantastic life and go be a great, top-notch, grade A hunting dog, duck dog, pheasant dog, whatever it is that they're wanting? Which, if that is the case, and if that is the decision, we lose money on that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes a lot of money, especially when you take into consideration all the hours and the time and everything that goes into, the training and developing of that dog. But that is what we have to do in order to be extremely selective in the dogs that we're using. And, we have a lot of dogs that it breaks my heart. I know it breaks your heart. Mm-hmm. Now Ava's getting of the age that breaks her heart. Ava's our daughter, for those of you who don't know. And when we have to make the decision that this dog just isn't quite the fit for us in a breeding, style. And the reason we have to make those decisions is because we can't own 30 dogs.
Right.
We can only own so many, so we have to hold ourselves to who is the best of the best and who does exactly, who is the dog that we need. Mm-hmm. And so, I use Herbie for an example. Herbie, we loved Herbie. He laid on the floor with Ava as she was a baby. She grew up with him essentially in the house and by her side, but Herbie just didn't quite turn out physically to be what we wanted. He, I think from a training aspect, he didn't quite show me what I wanted. Now, if you saw Herbie and you watched him run, and many people did, many people loved that dog, and many people watched him hunt test, they'd tell me I was crazy and that he was a fantastic dog and a very good dog, and they loved him and all this stuff, and all of that is true. But when you look at who we have in Brock and in Bud and in Clyde and now in Strike and Bracken, it's like he was a great dog, but he wasn't special like these guys are. Mm-hmm. And so we had to make that gut-wrenching decision, and Herbie got on his private jet and flew down to his new private ranch and lives a better life than Whitney and I will ever live. But those are the types of decisions that are extremely difficult and painful. And so that is a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of what it takes to get these dogs here. And I think one of the things that separates us from a lot of people that are breeding specifically British Labs is that we're going above and beyond and doing a lot of this. Now that is just to get the dog here and get the dog trained and get the dog to this point, right? Now the real work begins. Now the work of all the genetic testing that you just talked about, right? Yep. Now we need to see those puppies, those offsprings that they're throwing. Are they producing what we think they are? Because any of us that have been around animals for any amount of time knows that just because you have a great animal and just because you have great lines does not necessarily mean that dog is, or bull or horse or whatever it is going to produce great offspring. So we need to make sure of that, and it takes us a couple litters to get there and all that. But there's a lot that goes into this. And, I guess the reason that I'm saying all this is that, cost wise, when it comes to the cost of the puppies, there's so much cost that goes into everything that we have going on before we even hit this point.
Yeah.
And so I guess if I were to be honest, maybe we're not charging enough if you really look at all the costs that we have going out. But that's, I guess, one of the reasons, and one of the ways that we go through selecting our breeding pairs. Now, here's the other side of the breeding pair thing. Again, from a training perspective, that I'm training the dogs we're breeding. I think that is very unique. I think that is very special, and I think that's very important for a lot of reasons. But probably the biggest reason that I believe that this is important is because, going back to my pedigree rant that I had last week, that you can't tell everything from a pedigree, right? So, like you said, all my boys completely titled out. We do a lot of it, with our girls as well. We don't always have the opportunity to do it with the girls just because they are living with their forever homes and families, and sometimes they don't want to, give these girls up. But I still train them. They still come in for training. They go through the process, and I watch them develop, and I watch what is natural versus what is trained in, what is their strengths and weaknesses. That is the only way that I believe you can truly match up these boys and girls to produce the best puppies that you can. I'm not just looking at a piece of paper. I'm physically watching them grow up, and I'm the one that's working with them. And, if I have to manufacture, train something in, I'm doing that. So I know what I had to do, right? And that was kind of my point with the pedigree side of things, is that, the paper can only show you so much. Well, I'm seeing the other side of it. I'm proving on paper that they're capable of it, but I'm watching them develop. And so from the breeding pair standpoint, I would say that absolutely you are more family oriented. Absolutely my competitive nature takes over, and I am more in the field, that, driven, application, standpoint. But I also think that's what, makes us work so well together in this, is because most people, and I would even argue 99.9%, these dogs are family members first and hunting dogs second. And I don't care how much you're training. I don't care how much you're hunting for my dogs. My dogs train literally all year round. They hunt test. They hunt over 90 plus days every single year. They are working as much, if not more, than most any other dogs you'd find. Our dogs are still family members first. Yeah. And hunting dogs second. Right. And because 365, that's what they are. They're a part of our family. And so, I think that breeding aspect, all of that goes into what it is we're producing in these puppies.
Yeah. And going to the training side of things, we had a litter last year that we loved them, but both you and I wanted a little bit more fire under them. So then we changed the sire for the second breeding to see if we can get a little bit more fire under them by using a different sire, which I think it's turned out fantastic so far.
Oh, there's no question.
So we, back to the reservation list, when people say, well, how do you know, since we do the placement of all the puppies, we can truly tell you, well, this is what we saw from the repeat breeding, and this is why we think it's a great litter for you to get a puppy from.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's huge.
Yeah.
So, take a quick second and thank gundogsupply.com. They are a big sponsor of this show. Again, another great people company. Love that. So if you need anything, like I was just shopping on there today for more launchers that we're going to need for this upcoming training season. And one of the things I love about Gundog Supply is it's one of the very few places that is dedicated to those of us that are gundog training, gundog hunting enthusiasts, and there's just not many of them out there anymore. So love supporting companies like that. If you guys need anything for your hunting or training season, www.gundogsupply.com. This next one is kind of like a next step into what we were talking about, and it gets I'd say a layer deeper as we talk about the breeding side of things, which is, why do you breed your females only 2 to 3 times?
Yes. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know, but Josh and I only own one of our breeding females who's now retired, but that was little Sweet Pea Sage. So we, rather than housing a whole bunch of females for breeding, we actually have breeding contracts with our clients from offsprings of ours or females that we have imported. This way, these females are living inside the homes, having a great quality of life, and they get to come back to me then once they've passed their genetic testing and once we know that we want them in our breeding program after they've went through training with Josh. So, the short answer is because, one, they don't live with us. They live with our clients, and we don't want to take that time away from our clients that they could have with their dog. So we breed them either when they're 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. So I also don't want to overbreed females. I think it's really important to not overbreed them and to make sure that they are staying extremely healthy during the breeding process and having puppies. And I'd say that's the short answer of why we breed them 2 to 3 times. And it's a really fun experience for our clients to go through. They are very much a part of the entire process, all the way from the breeding part to when I whelp out the litter to visiting the puppies and, seeing them all the way go home until they're 7 weeks. And sometimes those owners will actually keep in contact with the puppies to see how they're doing at their homes because, then they create a fun relationship with those clients.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I look at when a question like this comes up is, I think this is just being respectful to the dog, right? Yeah. And we actually just talked to a guy that we saw at an event here over the winter, and he was breeding, or he had talked about a dog that he was breeding for the 8th time, and this dog was 7 years old. And I was thinking, like, my goodness, like that poor girl she hasn't had a life other than being a mother, which I'm not saying is a bad life, of course. But I just think about as humans, we talk about what a toll having children takes on your body, and a dog is no different, right, than that. And so, I really think a lot of this has to do with being respectful to the female herself. Mm-hmm. And like I look at Sage, which like Whitney had said, Sage is the only female that we own, and that is 100% my fault. And I'll probably tell the Sage story at some point. But Sweet Pea is her nickname, which everyone, all of my friends now overseas know her as Sweet Pea. It's a big joke. I'll probably tell that story later on too. That's my little nickname for her. But Sage, she had 3 litters. Yep. So even our personal, dogs, we're not doing any more than that on. And again, this really just does come down to you respecting the dogs for who they are and not abusing that, because it's very easy to abuse it. Mm-hmm. And it's very easy to look at her and be like, geez, like a lot of people want Sage puppies. Mm-hmm. Like, could we get another litter? Could we do 2 more litters? Could we, that's greedy. That's greed, right? And so being respectful to the dogs, I think, is a big part of that. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree.
So, all right. So next question would be, can I purchase your dogs, puppies is what this person meant by this, if I am not a hunter? This is very, very interesting.
Yes. This is a great question that I really like to answer, and it's absolutely you can. Like we said, we have about 10 to 15 litters a year. And I would say when we're looking at our breeding pairs, we're breeding, some of them are fire and fire, all the way down to basically a litter that could be a therapy dog for, kids with autism, people with PTSD, people that just need that really great family dog. They might have 3 kids, whatever it may be. So you can absolutely purchase a puppy from us if you're not a hunter. We're producing family dogs first, hunting dogs second, I would say. And they want to please you. They want to live a great life with you. And obviously you have to be active with your dog. Take them on walks, throw the ball for them, do something with them, but you don't have to be a hunter. You don't have to be a hard hunter at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, from my training standpoint is I would agree. I'd say no. I would say finding the right litter
Yep.
is very important, which again is why we ask that if you get on the list, you buy in and you trust us, and we will recommend only what we think is the right fit for you. But we've had dogs who go on and be search and rescue,
Yep.
cadaver, drug dogs, therapy dogs. I mean, there's a whole list of things that our dogs have gone to go do. And I don't think that you need to be a hunter in order to to get that. But at the same time, having the right litter is a big deal. Which of course you give the direction on that. So no, you don't need to be a hunter. But on the same side, it's getting the right litter. We wouldn't push you with a sage Brock litter.
Right. Absolutely.
I guess before we move on, one last thing that I would say about the can I purchase your dog if you're not a hunter piece is, think about the qualities that I'm looking for as a duck dog, right? I'm looking for, I want the big motor. Yes, I need that. But I want intelligence. I want trainability. I want off switch and composure. I want a dog to be quiet. I mean, those are all things that I think everybody wants, right? Like, don't you want that as a family dog? So I guess, that would be part of my answer to that is, I think a lot of the qualities that I'm looking for are still the qualities that you're looking for. Now, if you're looking for a couch potato that doesn't do anything and has no desire to do anything, then it's probably not our dogs. But, a great family member to go, spend time at the lake and go to the park and, whatever it is that you do, I think a lot of our dogs would fit that yet.
Yeah, I think so too. They all have the off switch. It's how much of an on switch do you want?
Yep, I think that's a great way to put it. This is kind of an interesting, more of a personal question, I guess maybe a little bit, is it hard for you to see the puppies leave when it's time for them to go to their forever homes?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so there's kind of two parts to it. Yeah, it's a little hard to see them go to their new homes just because I've been with them like 24/7 for the last 7 weeks. But like puppy pickup day is my absolute favorite day ever because everyone is so excited to come pick up their puppy. We have like the best clients ever. These puppies live amazing lives, and we almost always get to see them again when they come back for training. So it's not like we're just handing the puppy over being like, good luck with your puppy. Like, this is literally the start of a relationship with every single client that we have. And if you've ever raised a litter, these puppies are ready to go live in a home, be with people, learn what life is all about, between 7 and 8 weeks. So these puppies need to go at 7 or 8 weeks, in my opinion, and to start living that quality of life that they deserve. So yes, it is a little bit, but also no, because we have awesome clients who give their puppies amazing lives.
Yeah, and I guess for me, from again more of a training standpoint, it is not. Boy, I'm going to sound like a terrible person, by answering this, but it is not hard for me to see them go. A lot to do with the fact that I agree with you. I think these dogs these puppies are ready to go home at that point. I think they need that next step in their life, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. I think for me, I guess I'm always just so focused on those next stages in life. I have a way harder time. This is going to sound sappy, but I have a way harder time watching dogs go home after training than as puppies, because for me, same for you. Like, you're with those puppies every day. I'm with these dogs training every day, and so these dogs become an incredible part of my life for 3, 4, 5 months, however long they're in, and then for them to be gone, I mean, it's not fun, But at that age, they have a personality. They make a connection with you. They're loyal with you. You work as a team to accomplish what you accomplish, and so it's more difficult for me from a training standpoint than it is a puppy standpoint. But but it kind of leads me into my next question.
Wait, before you go to that one, I have one more thing to add.
Okay.
I would say the hardest time that I have when my puppies leave is if we are shipping the puppies. When I don't get to meet the owners, get that like personal connection. And if I'm just taking them to the airport, being like, okay, good luck, little puppy. You know, I ship probably 60% of our puppies, which is a lot. And it's hard to leave a little 8-week, 10-week-old puppy, you know, whatever the airline, you know, whatever the requirements are for the age. But that's when it's really hard, is when you leave the little puppy and they go on the flight, which they are phenomenal on the flight. They just sleep, I'm sure. But that's the hardest, is leaving them at the airport.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think we're seeing more and more of that, right? Like we've had puppies to how many states at this point?
Well, all of them but 2.
Yeah, I think we're at 48 states.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a puppy going to Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
We have, all provinces in Canada.
Yep.
We've shipped to. There's another country,
Moscow,
that is. It's incredible, right? It's incredible where these puppies are going. And the hardest part, I would agree, is that we don't get to meet everyone. It's we highly, highly, highly recommend it. And I will say most people do. Most people make the trip. But, there's a lot of circumstances, COVID being one of them, that it just doesn't make it possible, right? And some people have, lead extremely busy lives that it can't be, and we totally get that. But we're seeing more of that. We're seeing more of these long distance. I would even say, which is kind of cool from a training standpoint, majority of dogs that are in for training are not local.
Right.
Majority are flown in or driven in from very, very long distances. And so that's fun for me. I know it's fun for you puppy wise, because we get to, keep up with all these puppies in these, cool places doing these awesome things. But it is something we're seeing more and more of all the time.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So this is one I've actually been looking forward to asking, because this, I think, is very abnormal from the norm as far as what people think of when they think of puppies and getting litters and whatnot. But the question that comes up is when placing puppies, sometimes people get concerned that they don't get to pick their puppy from that litter. And so we get a lot of people, again, that don't know what we talked about earlier, which is you don't put your deposit down on a litter, right? You're not buying a litter. And so, people that don't know that go, well, I want pick of the litter for this litter, which we don't do. And so explain our process, explain what it is that we're doing, and then I want to echo kind of my side of that too.
Okay. So when a litter is born, I start at the top of the reservation list, so say a yellow male. Start at the top of the yellow male reservation list. I work my way down from top to bottom, offering people only a puppy from that litter that fits the temperament they want. I want to make sure that I'm placing the puppy and the owner correctly. That's obviously job number 1 of mine.
And just jump in. How you do this is you have notes on every person.
Yes.
You have a list of things that people fill out as far as what it is they're looking for. That's how you know what they're looking for.
Correct. Yep. Right. Absolutely. So I know what you are going to be doing with this puppy. I know what your goals, what your needs, what your wants are with your puppy that you're getting from us. Okay. So then I'm going to send you a puppy offer email. What this means is that you are accepting a puppy from this litter, but not a specific puppy. Reason being is that in every single litter, the puppies, believe it or not, they really do start to show a little bit of different personalities, different temperaments before they go home at 7 weeks of age. So there's always going to be the most dominant puppy in the litter. There's always going to be the most relaxed puppy in the litter. And the rest of them are going to fall anywhere in between. So in a litter, I might have, now remember, they are all from the same genetic. So you are not ever getting one puppy that is better than the other from the litter. There's like no such thing in my mind, because they all have the same genetics. So I might have someone that's looking to do more hunting than another family. And my goal is to make sure I'm placing you with the right puppy. So there might be a puppy, say the most dominant one. The most dominant one is going up to the other litter mates, showing its dominance. They're walking around with toys in their mouth. They're very independent. That's going to go to someone that's doing a lot of hunting. Someone that doesn't want a puppy to be the biggest cuddler in the world, but then you might have a family that has young kids and it's going to be a very good best friend to some little kid, something like that. I want to make sure that I'm making sure that I place these puppies with who they need to go to, really.
And before you go any further,
yeah.
I think it's important to talk that these are pretty minute separations because you've already done the right job first by getting them the right litter, right? It's not like you're going to go from this litter, you're going to have, one rock star that is this fire-breathing dragon that is going to be this, crazy big motor, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have this dog that doesn't want to do anything. These are minute, but it's important to note these tendencies when placing because, again, inside that litter, as far as clients goes, they're probably minute changes as far as what it is that they're wanting to do, right? There's not a huge wide array because we already narrowed that down per litter before we get to this separation point.
So, and remember, their personalities, their temperaments really don't start to show until 5 weeks. So that gives me 1.5 weeks to figure out these puppies. They will really, truly mold to the environment that you also raise them in. I can only do so much with a 7-week-old puppy. So I say, this is what I am noticing, this is what I'm seeing, and this is who I believe this puppy would best fit with.
So here's what I think is so interesting on that is that, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents on this because I really believe the way that we go about placing these puppies is the best way to do this. And I think way too often, and we do lose people that don't get puppies from us because of this, because they want pick of the litter. Okay, so let me tell you a little story about this. We had a vet from, at the time she was doing a lot of work with the University of Minnesota. She's bounced around since, but big vet over in the cities, the Twin Cities. I'm sorry, we always call it the cities because it's local, but Minneapolis, St. Paul. Big vet over there, and she was getting a puppy from us. And she was adamant that she had her own testing that she wanted to do to ensure that she was getting the right puppy for her needs, right? And normally we just wouldn't do this, but I'm a nerd, and so I'm like, I'd love to see how this turns out. Sure, you can do that. So she came out every day after work, and she went through and she did this testing. And every day, I would be getting done with training, right about this, the same time. And I'd say hi and see her, but she'd never ask my opinion. She never, told me what she was doing. I'd kind of peek over her shoulder, but I would never watch, or hover over her or anything like that. I just let her have her time. Well, like Whitney just said, there's not a ton of time, to do this. You get, anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks. I mean, that's not a whole lot of time to figure these puppies out. And so, but she was diligent every day after work. She'd come do this. So I knew what she wanted. She wanted a dog that was going to basically go to work with her a lot. But the big thing was she was very into going to children's hospitals and putting in just volunteer time being with the kids, specifically terminally ill kids. And the dog was going to be a big part of that. And so she wanted a dog that was going to be super calm temperament, very sweet. There was a lot of that side of things she was looking for. So she went through this, I think it was about 10 days. And finally, on the last day, I was doing my same routine, just pulled in with my trailer, was walking into the office. And if you've ever been to our office, where our office is, we have a big front yard into one of our training ponds. And that's where she would always do this testing. So I was walking up her sidewalk going into the office, and she's like, I was just going to get to the door. And she's like, Josh, can I ask you something? And I'm like, my ears perk up because I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've been waiting for this. So I go over there and I'm like, yeah, what's up? And she's like, I think I have it narrowed down to the dog, that I want. But I'd like your feedback on this. I was like, oh, this is great. What are you thinking? And she's like, well, I've narrowed it down. Like I said, I need, this is what I'm looking for. I need super mellow, super laid back. And I think probably the most, laid back dog that is in this group is brown collar. And I think that's the puppy that best fits my needs, And I was like, all right. And she's like, well, what do you think? And if anyone knows me, you know that when you ask my opinion, you're going to get my opinion. And so I kind of chuckled and I said, well, I think that's interesting because, he is by far the most dominant puppy in this whole litter. And she like is blown back and she's like, no. And I was like, yes. And she's like, it's not possible. Like, I've done all this testing. I have all this stuff here. And I was like, okay, let's look at it this way. I think it's great that you've done all this work. I think it's great you've put in all this time, but let's think about what you've done. You have come every day when you get done with work between 2 and 3, every day. The only reason he seems like he's the most laid-back puppy that is in here is because he has spent all day up to this point beating up on his brothers and sisters, and he's tired. So you are getting a misrepresentation of what this puppy really is. She's like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that, right? So there's a lot that goes into this. Here's why the whole pick of the litter thing, it makes me pull my hair out. Because, one, if you want the best read, like if there's a specific temperament you're looking for, and you want to know which one is the most dominant, which one's the most submissive, which one is in between, right? There's only one person, at least in our operation, that can tell you that. That's Whitney, because she is with these puppies all day, every day. Nobody else can tell you that. You're not going to get that from an hour going to look at a litter. You're not going to get this from a day looking at a litter. You're not going to get it from multiple days looking at a litter. Whitney watches these puppies grow up from literally the moment they are born to the moment that they go home. She's the only person in our operation here that can tell you exactly what puppy fits what temperament level. That's it. Okay? So that's one thing, because the whole pick of the litter thing, like, you can't tell. Mm-hmm. Like, I know a lot of people have theories, and I know people have opinions, and I've heard the whole, the puppy picked me. I bet it did. It's a cute story, right? But it didn't, right? So, and I'm sorry if that's too blunt. I'm sorry if I just burst your bubble on your story. I'm sorry. I don't mean to do that.
You can keep telling the story, but it is cute.
Right. It is. It's totally cute. But it's not factual. Like, it's not like I look at things very black and white and how things are, and it's not the case, right? So the only person that you should really be leaning on, again, in our circle, is Whitney. Here's the other thing, is that what does pick of the litter mean? Mm-hmm. Like, why is that meaningful to you? Why? There's one reason. Because you think you're getting the best, right? There's no other reason that you want pick the litter except that you think if you have first pick that you are going to get the best puppy that's in that litter. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, one, I'm going to tell you, there's no way to know that at 7, 8 weeks old. There's no way to know which one of those puppies is going to be the best one, of that group. And here's my argument. My argument is that when you take a puppy and you go home, from that day forward, what that puppy turns into, you've done all your work. You've got with the right breeder. You've got with the right litter. You are now picking up that puppy, right? So what I would say is, from that point forward, what that puppy turns into is what you put into that puppy. Whether it's the situations, whether it's the training, whether it's what have you. It is what you do with that puppy going forward that is going to dictate what that puppy turns out to be. And it's incredible how this works. So, we get clients that come out of the car and, they're, very in shape and energetic, and the dog jumps out, and is the same thing, right? Or you get somebody that, maybe is a little heavier set and super laid back, and, the dog comes out of the car and is the same way, right? These dogs are going to feed off of, you and your lifestyle and what you put them in. I think that's very, very, very important, because there's too much of this thought process of, like, again, going back to the pedigree thing. Mom and dad were this, so this puppy should be that. Why? Unless you put in the time, the work, and the effort, the dog's never going to be, right? Same thing with any puppy going forward. Like, it is what you put in that dog. These dogs they're a product of their environment. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very important. Yeah. Pick the litter is not going to change anything there. And then on the other end of the spectrum, which is always the end that I hate, is that if someone gets the last pick, they always think, well, they got the worst puppy, which again is completely untrue if you've gone through the process of what we're talking about with getting the right breeder, getting with the right litter, getting everything in line. Now, again, it is what you put that puppy into. What is the environment and what is the situations you put that puppy into? What is the training you put that puppy into, right? It is not a better or best and worst.
Well, and pick of the litter, your pick of the litter, to be completely honest, would probably be a different pick of the litter for me.
Right.
You know, like if we showed up, this would be my pick of the litter, this would be your pick of the litter. So everyone's pick of the litter is different.
Right.
On top of that.
Which you are doing the work and narrowing it down and fitting the best fit, for them.
Right.
Here's something I think is really interesting. So, I speak at a number of shows all the time, and one of my favorite shows to speak at is Pheasant Fest. I know you guys are sitting there going, "Oh, I thought you were a duck hunter." Well, doesn't mean I don't like, I don't like my upland peeps. And so, but I love that show for one big reason, which is I get to see a lot of my friends and mentors and people that I worked and grew up learning under because we all speak at that show. And Rick Smith, who's a great friend of mine, if you guys don't know of Rick Smith, look him up. He and his dad Delmer are legends in the dog training industry, in the dog training world. Rick's cousin Ronnie is a great friend and mentor of mine as well. They're just great people. But one thing that I watched Rick talk about in a seminar one time has always stuck with me, which is somebody asked, I have picked the litter. How do I pick that puppy? And he gave an answer and then he gave a follow-up to this. So actually his dad gave a follow-up. So here's how it went. Gentleman raised his hand, asked how I picked this puppy. Rick's answer was, are you getting a boy or a girl? Male or female? He said, I'm getting a male. He goes, okay, here's what you do. First, you take all the males, you separate them from the females. Like, okay. And you can see the guy's like on the edge of his seat, thinking he's going to give him some magical answer. And he said, now what you're going to do is you're going to close your eyes and pick one. And the guy, he kind of looks at him like, and then what? And he's like, that's it. Because you have already done the work, right? You have already done everything we just talked about with getting with the right, breeder, pair, everything else leading up to that, okay? Here's what was really interesting is that then, because we're all up on stage all at once, Delmer, which is his dad, who is, well, I guess to be honest with you, I don't know how old he is because I've asked him 3 years in a row and it's been 88, 88, 92. So I have no idea. I have no idea how old he actually is, but let's just say in his 90s. Delmer grabs that mic and he goes, Rick, how many national champions have you trained? I think the answer was 3. And he said, okay, how did you pick every one of those puppies? And Rick's answer was, it was the last puppy left over. Every single one of them. That proves my point. It's about the litter. And from that point forward, it's about the work that you put into that dog, is the situations you put into that dog. This whole pick of the little litter thing just makes me pull my hair out. It's something, if you couldn't have told from the rant I just went on, is something I get passionate about. But I think it's a big piece of what we have going on. I really think, honestly, one thing that separates us, again, from a lot of people that are out there doing it.
Absolutely. If you talk to all of our clients, they would say, I'm so glad that I did not have to pick my puppy and that you paired me with the one you thought was the best. And it is the best for them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I have one more question here that I want to go over. Before I do that, I want to say thank you to Lucky Duck. If you guys have not checked out the Lucky Duck crate, go do that. It is a fantastic crate, 5-star crash test rated. And what do you love about it, Whit?
That I can lift it and carry it and put it in the back of my car.
Which is funny because I think a lot of these advertisements I talk about that you love it, but now that you're actually here, you can say that you love it. But it's a great crate. Go to luckyduck.com to see that crate. It is a great product. So one of the last questions that I have here is, what training do you do with the puppies before they go home? I think this is an interesting one. It's one that I didn't talk to you about before we got on here, so it might be interesting to me to even hear your answer on this. But I know that I kind of have my point on this too. But I'll let you roll with it.
So I think it's a really interesting question because what type of training are you looking for in a 7-week-old puppy? Number one, I mean, they're 7 weeks old. What do you expect from them? And I'm going to kind of do a spin-off on a different style of training that I do with our puppies. It's not sit, come, know your name. One, we don't name the puppies because I could never take on that job. That would be unbelievable. So we put collars on all of our puppies and just call them by their collar color. But anyways, so when I think of what type of training do I do with these puppies, it's a little bit different, and it has a lot to do with socialization of the puppies, getting them into different environments, getting them socialized, and building their confidence for when they go home. It's going to make going home a lot easier on the owners and the puppies. So when the puppies are born, they're actually in a puppy nursery at our home, so I can keep a really close eye on them and the mamas. And then they're kind of turning into little rascals, and they need to go up to the puppy nursery at the kennel, which is bigger. They have a little bit of an immune system then, and I start weaning them from the mom at about 3.5 weeks old. So they are well on their way to becoming little independent puppies at that time. So once they go up to the puppy nursery at the kennel, that's when I start their quote unquote training. That is something as simple as them listening to different noises, such as the blender when I make their mush. That's a sound that they get used to. They get used to me doing dishes in there, clinking, things around. They get used to me vacuuming around them while they're out running around, not when they're in the pen, when they're out running around. And then socializing with other people inside and outside on the grass, on the concrete. In the summer, I'll run a hose so they can run through the water. Our daughter Ava loves the puppy, so they're socialized with, little kids all the way up to Josh's grandpa, who's in his late 80s, and anywhere in between. So socializing these puppies is basically what I would consider their training when they're with me all the way until they go home, which is extremely important. These puppies need to know that there's more to this world than just the 4 walls that their puppy pen is made out of.
Yeah, I would echo everything you just said, because I'm not sure what this individual meant when they said training, but training at this age is much different than training at 6 months, which is much different than training at 12 months, which is much different than training at 2 years, right? You're training, but you're doing it very differently. And so I think the noises are a big part of that. I've been in puppy nurseries that are completely dead quiet, that might have some soft classical music going in the background, and that's it, right? And one thing that was really interesting to me was, speaking of Rick Smith, Rick was the one that told me this long time ago when I was working with him, which was he intentionally puts his dog or his puppies in a pen that is close to a lot of noise to just make it where noises are a part of life. Desensitize them to a lot of this stuff early on, which I think is really, really interesting. Now, we don't have gore horror movies and chainsaws going in the background and, stuff like that, but like you said, the blender going off when you're making mush, or, the pans clanking, or, naturally, because just outside the puppy room, where we do a lot of training, so there's noises going on out there. We are not, I want to be very clear about this, we are not shooting around them. We are actually extremely careful not to be doing anything like that. When the puppies are outside is when none of that is going on. And so there's a lot that we're doing before the puppies go home. And here's a piece of feedback that I always think is great, is that, Whitney takes a tremendous amount of care in making sure that those puppy pens are extremely clean. What we have found is that the feedback from our puppy buyers are that these puppies are, for the most part, extremely easy to house train or potty train. They pick up on that very, very quick. And a lot of times people are like, it's almost like he came, housebroken. Well, of course he didn't, but I think a lot of that has to do with just the cleanliness, the routine, which I think is very, very, very important. You'll hear me talk training-wise specifically about routine and why it's important from a mental standpoint. There's a lot there that you're doing that may not be quote-unquote formal training. Like you said, you're not sit, stay, come. You're not doing that kind of thing. But there's a lot to be said about that time. There's also a lot to be said about growing up in that litter and what those litter mates teach each other from a socialization, from a pecking order standpoint, and things like that. And so, so I'd say that there's a lot being done. It just may not being done in, it may not be being done rather in that quote unquote formal training style.
Right. Absolutely. Something as simple as clipping their nails every week. I mean, how many people say I can't clip my dog's nails because they throw a fit? I am trying to desensitize your dog to hating nail clippings by clipping their nails every week, touching their mouth and, sacking them out like they say, making sure the puppy is totally vulnerable and letting me touch every square inch of them. So, come a day in the field where you need to inspect your dog, they're not throwing a fit when you're trying to look inside their mouth or look at their pads.
Sacking them out, that is an awesome term. And if those of you, if there's someone out there that's unfamiliar with that term, which I totally get because I was before we had horses, sacking them out is just simply teaching them to be touched everywhere. So you touch their face, up to their ears, down to their tail, each foot individually, dogs, not in horses, each toe individually, letting them be comfortable with being touched everywhere. Because whether it's, with horses, whether it's, farrier work to putting bridles on to, to saddle it, to everything, right? They need to be comfortable being touched everywhere. Same thing with these dogs. We don't think of it the same way, but it is. They have to be comfortable with being touched everywhere because at some point or another, they are going to be touched everywhere. And that's where, again, you avoid a lot of those, big fits, tantrums that can be thrown because they're not used to it. And so, doing that early on, I think is really, really important. So we've gone on, this is probably our longest one that we have ever done. I don't want to be going too terribly long, but I guess, is there anything kind of a final thought wise? Is there anything that you usually tell people, that we missed, or is there anything that you think is very important, or maybe like an added 2 cents that you might throw in here to kind of, finish this thing off?
Oh my gosh.
Another curveball.
I hate these curveballs. Not good on the fly. I would just say do your research. I mean, talk to multiple breeders. I think it's so important to, you are making a huge commitment for the next how many years. Make sure you do your due diligence. Talk to as many breeders as you want. Talk to as many references as you want. And ask as many questions as you want to the breeder. Make sure you are doing yourself a favor and that you're picking the right breeder.
Yeah, I think that's about the best advice that you can give.
Thank you.
So thank you for everybody for following us along on this one. Again, thank you so much to specifically Eukanuba being presenting sponsor, as well as Sitka Gear, Gundog Supply, and Lucky Duck. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Give us some feedback and let us know how you enjoyed this time with Whitney and talking puppies. So we'll talk with you all again next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to Eukanuba, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.